All right. All right, hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to the WTCF podcast. It's Charlie here, hanging out in this mystical void, and wanted to go ahead and share this week's intention. And again, maybe this is something that can help you a little bit through your week. So for this week, my focus has been is that life is not about wanting and wishing and hoping and expecting things from life. It's about what we're doing, what we're being, and then who we're becoming. So the things that we're working on for ourselves to start to make some changes for what we want to become. I was even listening to something just today around like again, everybody existing now is kind of like writing their own story, and the idea is your story going to be worth anything? Is it worthwhile to tell your story? Does anyone else ever want to hear your story or understand more about your life? And it's not so much of the things that we think about, but the things that we actively go out there and do on a regular basis. So for myself and recognizing myself finding some issues around consistency or finding some other issues around like my own motivation, I have to kind of rely back on my own disciplines and saying, well, you know what? I don't care that I feel tired. I don't care that I do feel hungry. I don't care that I feel these other things because I need to go ahead and do the work that I told myself that I would do, and I need to be a person of my word. So when I say I'm going to go do something, it's going to go get done. Maybe not in the most timely fashion. Sometimes it takes a little bit. I've watched that kind of happen with the studio, and you just still continue to do the best you can with what you have. So again, understanding that over time, I'm going to lose some customers. That has to be a reality of it. But over that time, hopefully, I can gain more than I lose. And they're not going to go ahead and be like, well, this is through your thought process. I need to show up to work daily and make sure that I'm giving as best as I possibly can for everybody who comes through the door. So for myself, kind of recognizing that, like, hey, it's really good and helpful to sit down and think through, what you want to go ahead and accomplish. But it's not to go ahead and say, well, I want these other things. Well, cool. If you want those things, what are you doing to move towards them? What work are you actively doing to continue on that path or to start on that path? Because there's nothing really stopping you from beginning a journey. There's nothing really there to say, well, you're not allowed to. You're allowed to start with your life however you see fit because this is your life. Don't let other people live it for you, right? So I get it. There's some responsibilities that we have to have, but we have to grow to accept some of those other things and then say, well, what are we going to do about those things? How are you going to become better? Hey, if this is a job that I don't like, well, what are we actively doing to improve ourselves? Do we work on improving our mind state of like, well, hey, I come into work and I think a little bit differently. And so maybe I'm going to do things a little bit differently around the office. Who am I going to become? If I come in and I'm angry every single day, do you think people are actually going to want to go ahead and talk to me if I come off as being angry every single day? Probably not. And probably the same could be said if I'm too nice. Some people will be like, well, then you're hiding something because you're too nice. And it's like, well, okay, then that's your perspective on what I'm doing. I want to go ahead and be a better person. So I focus in on who I'm trying to become next. And I've talked about it plenty of times on here about like trying to develop my own intelligence so I can go ahead and get better at some of these other things. So again, I'm going back into, and I fell off the boat or fell off the wagon a little bit for that one, but getting back into completing more books, even if it's just doing audiobooks. And I'm starting to look forward to the Soft 30 challenge next month, which is just another take on like the Hard 75, because yes, life could be more miserable, right? So I wanted to go ahead and give myself a challenge to go ahead and work through to see, do I still have it in me to challenge myself to do something difficult? Because I've recognized that my own layers of stress have increased. None of this work is easy. It's incredibly taxing on the mind, body, and the soul. So I want to make sure that I can get those things done. I recognize just how tired I can be. And for those who are looking for more information on that one, um, I taught 40 classes in 2 weeks. I'm averaging upwards of 20 classes a week on top of my full-time job, on top of my board responsibilities, on top of getting ready for the new soccer season. So for the season, I'm not coaching again. I don't have the bandwidth to do it. Like my business is more important than some of that stuff because again, this is like my livelihood and what I want to work on. I completely understand the importance of working to develop the youth, and I can still do that through other means as well. So I can go out there and be a better uncle to my niece. I'm still going to be coaching 3 to 5 year olds. So once a week, I'm still going to be doing that and having some fun and most likely someone's going to get mad at me saying that you didn't meet my standards. And it's like, well, you know what? If I don't, what are you doing about it? Instead of wanting, hoping, wishing for these things to happen, what are you going to actively do when you get involved in the programs? How are you going to help yourself to do these things more? So it's just a lot of things in life can be really, really difficult. And it's the actions that we do, not just the thoughts that we have, that are going to make a bigger difference for us. So hopefully that's something that can help you out. And on that note, good luck.